Welcome back, our viewers, and to shed more light on the Islamic art and the Islamic culture. We are very much delighted to be joined here over the phone by Dr. Ahmad Romouzy, Dean of Arts and Design University. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to you and to your audience.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, how Islamic decorations are integral part of the Islamic art theory and practices?
Well, when we talk about the Islamic decoration and the Islamic art, we are not talking about only ornamentals. We are talking about concepts and geometry that reflects order, unity, infinity, all the things that we call design basics and fundamentals. Through the Islamic thoughts. Arabesque, the vegetal motifs that symbolize the growth and continuity of life. Also calligraphy that elevates the word itself when you write to a visual form of art. And its practice and the elements, the structures, architecture of objects, which we use also and implement on textiles, manuscripts, that creates the harmony between the spirituality of the Islamic art, integrating mathematics, crafts, and aesthetics. All these decorations of the Islamic arts actually are part of the visual theology that is expressed through design. And it is a great source of inspiration for students, practitioners of art, artists, designers, and everyone who is interested in the Islamic art.
Yes. Doctor, when was the traditional Ramadan lantern introduced in Egypt, and what was its origin? Was it an Arab or non-Arab origin?
Well, that's a history question. I believe that the traditional lantern that we call in the Arabic language fanus is widely tracked back with many sources. But I believe the most strong track goes back to the Fatimid period, between the 10th and the 11th century. And particularly, I think, and if I remember correctly, Al-Mu'izz Ridin Allah ruling period, when he entered, because there's a story that when he entered Cairo at night, that the people welcomed him carrying the fanus or the lantern. And there is other sources that track the lantern actually to festive ceremonies at ancient Egyptian ceremonials for pharaohs. But I think implementing the fanus with the Islamic art and the Islamic month of the holy month of Ramadan goes to the Fatimid period, especially when the Fatimid Islamic context through lighting artifacts existed earlier in non-Arab civilizations as well.
Yes. Doctor, of course, the traditional Ramadan lantern has developed largely in recent years in Egypt with modern versions that may distort the original themes behind the traditional versions. Do you have a comment about these changes that occurred on the fanus or the Ramadan lantern?
Well, I think we had several and many introductions to the fanus with more modern concepts that is rooted to the Islamic art, and some actually have deviated from the roots of art. Because when we talk about the Islamic arts, we're talking about calligraphy, the mathematical ornamentals, but not using the photos and music with the more modern plastics, such as plastics and the metals that wasn't actually the main material that was used at the early stages of the fanus. These adoptions actually was a natural implementation in the modern life. It happened to have some distortions that symbolize the loss of identity in the lantern, using new trends from the digital lights that we have recently now, rather than the cultural icon that it is represented in the light and the spirituality back in the celebration of the holy month. But
Yes.
I think that there is some people who are really keen and working hard to keep the original identity of the Islamic art represented in the fanus or the Islamic lantern for the holy month of Ramadan.
Yes. Sir, of course, the Islamic decorations are generally based on geometry or drawn from natural plants. How you evaluate the recent introduction of cartoon images into Ramadan art gifts? Is it a part of cultural invasion on the Arab identity, or how do you see this new introductions, and how do you see the origin actually of the Islamic art, which is based on the geometric patterns?
Well, this is a very important and good question. I don't believe it is necessarily a culture invasion. I wouldn't call it a culture invasion, but it may indicate culture dilution of the current commercial imagery that it is used nowadays to commercialize the product, especially with celebrities using their photos on giveaways or mascots or whatever the product that it is used now. Because the Islamic decorative tradition historically avoids the figurative imagery anyway and the religious context, favoring the geometry and visual abstraction. So I wouldn't call it an invasion, but it is an unsuccessful trial to implement the modern imagery, which I think wasn't very successful because it didn't actually meet the balance that is needed for the contemporary visual culture that should coexist in the tradition. It coexisted in the tradition and it should carry on to coexist in nowadays identity as well.
Yes. So what about the traditional cannon that is used to be shot in the past to announce the beginning and the ending of the fasting? Is it related to the culture, the Islamic culture, or what's the origin of madfa al-iftar or imsak or the cannon?
Well, this is, okay, again, this is a history question. I hope I answer it correctly, but if I remember correctly, it goes back to the Cairo Citadel when we used to have the cannon fired to announce the sunset for iftar or sometimes the sahur. I believe it goes back to the Mamluk or Ottoman period because the citadel goes back to the Ottoman period of Muhammad Ali when he ruled Egypt. So I think that using these cannons goes back to the Ottoman period. Maybe a bit later, but I'm not sure. But I think it is for the Ottoman period.
Doctor, is there a relationship between the ancient Egyptian art and the Arab and Islamic art?
Okay. The art in Egypt and the history of what we have found and studied is accumulative. So we can't disconnect it from each other. I think if there is a symbolic abstraction that goes from the ancient areas and it was integrated as art of spirituality from ancient Egypt through the Islamic period until the recent areas, because the creative disciplines was influenced by the architecture from the ancient through the Coptic, through the Islamic, and until the modern era. So it is rather accumulative rather than isolated, I think, and there is a connection between both of them.
Yes. How can the Egyptian artists, Doctor, integrate the different ancient schools of art?
Well, this is a very good question, and it is a hot potato topic now, and we stress on that when we teach art and design to our students. For example, I'll give you an example. We have a course called Art History. We don't teach art history only at Egypt Japan University as a history, but we teach the students to study the motifs of each area and learn how to reuse and reintegrate these motifs and elements by integrating it into modern design. So I believe that studying the structure principles rather than copying motifs is important. Also extracting the shared values like symbols, abstractions, and spiritual narration, because every piece has to tell a story, while using the contemporary technologies and reinterpret the heritage form in modern developed design and build a new design language that has a root in identity and global communication style for disseminating of our identity and the culture to the world.
Yes. Sir, how the modern technology and the AI could have an impact on the Islamic art and its usage?
Well, this is very tricky. AI could have a good impact and could have a bad impact. It depends on the person who is using AI. Me personally, with my students, I stress to keep an original work designed by the student or the designer himself before using the AI. We could use the AI to enhance the designs produced by the students, but not to generate designs. So it is a tool, a helpful tool, a co-designer that could support, save time, save the money, provide alternative to solutions. And it is very important to keep the intellectual property of the work. So if I'm keeping the intellectual property of my work, using the AI to enhance my work, that's fine. But if I use the AI to generate something for me, it will lose track of the Islamic identity. It won't generate the identity in the form and style that it is meant to be. And it has a major problem of intellectual property because you will never know the copyright holder because it uses big data to generate things. So it is not, I define the both when it is not used by original design from the person themselves.
Yes. Sir, as you have kindly mentioned, with all the new technologies, how can we preserve the ancient Egyptian arts and the Islamic arts from being manipulated or misused in a certain way?
The best thing to preserve anything is to keep talking about using, disseminating the knowledge, reviving, restoring, and sharing. So through these actions, you could keep it alive and teaching the people themselves about their origins, and they would learn about where it came from and how to keep it alive in modern life.
Sir, how can the static laws change with the variables of the present era and the culture, the philosophical and technological development that we are witnessing?
Well, this is something that cannot be changed in terms of the foundations. If we are talking about the proportions, the harmony, the balance, the rhythm, this kind of design principles are not changeable. However, the aesthetics itself as principles are not static. So it evolves through new concepts, new technologies, social transformation, especially nowadays we have the digital identities. Every person has his physical identity and a digital identity that is presented on the social media or in the digital environment. So the core aesthetics foundations are not changeable. However, aesthetics itself is a dynamic feature that develops and evolves through time.
Yes. Indeed, Professor Dr. Ahmad Romouzy, Dean of Arts and Design, thank you so much for your precious input. It was a real pleasure, sir, for joining us, and thank you for your input. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show, and with a quick recap, we have tackled the status of the non-Muslim fasting, the holy month of Ramadan in non-Muslim countries, and how they should balance that fasting with the work and this spirituality during the holy months. Also, we shed light on the Islamic culture and Islamic arts, which is of course of great importance to the art life in Egypt, especially during the holy months of Ramadan. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of myself, Maisi Rabia. Till tomorrow with another crew. Have a good day.